Hi, everybody. My name is Urenna, and I'm the founder of Cashmere, which is an early stage fintech company. And today I'm going to talk to you about how I built a tech company as a first time founder, using the power of community and curiosity. So, a quick background about who I am and what I've done. So, if we rewind to many years ago, so I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, about 28 years ago. Um, come from a very traditional Nigerian family where going to school and getting an education is very important. Getting straight A's was also very important. Going to university and then to study a proper degree. Um, having like a sort of like a planned career path was very much important. So anything to do with like, entrepreneurship or just anything that's just away from the norm was never really a thing that was discussed in my family. It was just kind of like, just very traditional. And for many years, that was all I knew. So even if we look at even with my background, so I did my A levels, got my straight A's, everything. Did about a year working in at KPMG within their forensic department. And then straight after that, went to university, studied economics and finance at the University of Exeter. And I think it was when I was at university was when I started to figure out who I was in terms of what what was it that really set my soul on fire, as the phrase goes. And I realized what I saw that I derived a lot of joy from was from building things and from creating things from scratch and coming up with really interesting ideas that had never been done before. So I was very much heavily involved with, university societies. And, for example, I was the president of the Fashion Society. Fashion Society didn't exist at my university until I came in, and we set it up. I was treasurer of the Afro-Caribbean Society. So, and then part of my role was, organizing different events, coming up with new, interesting things that we could do to make our members happy. And it was just, and I realized that like this is what made me very happy. But I never really considered myself as an entrepreneur because, like I said, throughout my growing up, being an entrepreneur was never a career that was ever discussed. So I just thought I was just someone who just liked to do cool stuff in addition to going down my traditional finance career route. So anyway, so I graduated from university in 2014 and then went straight into the world of corporate. And I worked for a firm called Saunderson House, which is a private wealth management firm where I was working as a financial advisor, basically managing investments and providing financial advice to high net worth individuals. So basically, my day-to-day job was to help rich people get richer, which is very interesting. And it was a job that I definitely learned a lot in terms of that this was like apart from working at KPMG, which was more of like an internship I did for a year. This was like my first proper job. And to be honest, as this has been the only other company apart from KPMG that I've worked with in terms of corporate life, but I definitely learned a lot in terms of like how to really become an adult. And even in the job that I did, it was very much it definitely was a stepping stone into what I'm doing at the moment with Cashmere. So, anyways, I was at the company for about 4 years, and then I left to then build my own startup. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail about how I went from traditional finance into a fintech company. And then in addition to my current role at Kashmir, I'm a scout for Back to PC, which is a early stage fund that invests in companies in Europe and particularly, and also we've done a few US investments, but it's mainly seed and Series A type companies who are looking for investment in order to like grow and scale their business. So that's enough about me. So I'm going to talk quickly about my transition into tech. And like I said, it was a very accidental journey. I had no plans to ever be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know the tech industry or the startup industry existed. I mean, obviously I knew tech existed, but I was more like a consumer of tech and was never really like thinking, oh, I could actually have a career in tech. And so basically, what happened was when I had the initial idea for Kashmir, I decided to do a bit more research into, okay, how do I build this product? Because like I'm someone who I don't really like to figure out stuff and then do it. I'm just like, if I have an idea for something, I would do it, and I'll just figure it out as like as I get along. And I've always been like that from a young age. So it was from like starting to do a bit more research into, okay, this is a product I want to build. I had this really cool idea, and this product I want to build. What like am I going to do? How do I do it? So I just went on Google, started researching loads of different things. Um, Started to like look at what else was already in this in what else was in the space that was solving the problem I was trying to solve, and then also looking at how, if they've done it, like how can I do it, how can I make it better, and then also speaking to like potential customers, so speaking to potential people who would use my products in the future. And then it was from all of those conversations, all of this research was how I was able to figure out, okay, this is how I'm gonna build my product. I mean, at this time I had no team; it was just me trying to figure it out on my own. I wasn't technical, all of that, and yeah, it was such a, I mean, what you would consider like an overwhelming experience, but for me, I didn't see it as overwhelming. I was like, oh my god, this is like amazing! Like, I really want to do this, and yeah. So from through all of that, I then figured out how to, I guess, build Kashmir. And actually, I'm gonna give you like a quick overview of what Kashmir is, so that it will give a bit more context about what I'm doing. So, in summary, Kashmir is a savings app that helps young aspirational consumers save up for their favorite luxury products in a much more financially responsible manner. So obviously now that we live in an age where there's easy access to consumer debt, and you've got platforms like Klarna and ClearPay that sort of promote a buy now pay later experience for consumers, particularly young consumers. We don't believe this is necessarily the best way to go, because we know that a lot of young people are going into debt in order to keep up with the lifestyle. So, for example, like research is showing that young people are spending £400 a month on like luxury products and experiences in order to keep up with their favorite Instagram influencer. But 7 in 10 of them are going into debt, to maintain that lifestyle, which obviously isn't sustainable, and is not something that a lot of people talk about, because debt is something, particularly in the UK, something that is quite hidden, and it's for anyone. It's not something that you really, really want to talk about with your peers. But the reality is that a lot of young people are going into debt for this. So that's why I decided to build Cashmere, which is a much more sustainable way of being able to access a luxury product you want. And basically how it works is, when you sign up, you spot a wide range of products available on our platform. So we've got a number of partnerships with retailers like Farfetch, Harvey Nichols, Selfridges, Harrods, and so on. So you spot an item that you want, and then you add it to your Cashmere wish list. You then connect your Cashmere connect your bank account to your Cashmere wallet, and then decide how much you want to save each month. So let's say like there's a Gucci belt you really want, and you want to save £100 every month towards that Gucci belt. So rather than taking up debt in order to pay for that, you can actually save up for it, and know that by the time you hit your goal, you can buy it and not feel guilty, and not feel like, oh, now I need to figure out how to pay for it, or like now I'm in a lot of debt that I need to, which does have like a like an emotional toll on you. So anyway, so £100 every month you're saving. You can track how close you are towards hitting your goal, and then once you've hit your goal, you buy the item directly on Cashmere, and then you also get up to 3% cash back on the purchases you make. So that's kind of like in a summary, and that's a quick summary of how the product works. And a lot of my experience from, like I said, from my previous job working as a financial planner, I was able to use that towards building Cashmere, because it's all about forward planning and thinking, and like thinking about what kind of lifestyle do I want in the future, and how can I make better financial decisions right now in order for me to be able to achieve that. So obviously we're using this for like the aspirational consumers, and thinking, okay, this is the lifestyle I want, this is the product I want in the future. What do I need to be doing now in order to have that item, i.e., how much should I be saving each month? And the whole point of it is that we shouldn't be promoting instant gratification, especially for young people, because there's just so much out there. Like, there's so much pressures to keep up. There's so many, brands are always advertising all their products and all that, and it's so overwhelming. And it's causing a lot of young people to make bad decisions, and we're trying to change the narrative around that. Anyway, so moving on from my product. So yeah, so that was what my whole thing, because obviously I worked as a financial advisor, and I saw how young people were getting into debt and all that. So I didn't come from a tech background, and I'm trying to build a fintech product. So how did I actually end up doing that? So the first thing I did, like I said, was researching the industry. So really taking my time to really understand how do things work already, what players are already out there, how the hell do I build a tech product, all of that kind of stuff. And seriously, I spent a lot of time really researching, going on Google to read a lot of different articles. And then not just that, so I started to also speak to and listen to different people like within the industry, and also people who I saw as like my potential customers. So what that meant was that I was going to a lot of meetups. I literally went on Eventbrite, and I was like searching those like fintech meetups and tech meetups and all of that kind of stuff. And then from there you meet someone who might like I talk about my idea with the person, and then they're like, oh, okay, cool, that's really cool. I know someone who would be interested in, like, you should connect with this person, and so on. And so from doing all of that was basically how I was able to sort of build my network. Also, and by the way, I was still doing my full-time job in finance during this whole discovery process. So literally, like in the evenings after work, I'd finish work at like 6:30, and then I would go to an event. Most of them were in central London, and my office was in central London, so it wasn't too bad. But I wouldn't get home till like 10, 11 p.m, and I'd be so tired, but also so like rejuvenated and just like excited about like building my company. So like speaking to different people, listening to them. Obviously, like, you want to take different opinions, and but take things with a pinch of salt, because not every opinion is weighed equally. And then from then on, as I was speaking to people, reading a lot, I started to like understand the lingo. So, like, for example, I didn't know fintech was a word, so I actually started, researching about how to build Cashmere. So yeah, so just through understanding lingo, you start to understand the way like the people in your industry talk. And then I also joined and contributed to relevant communities. So from like speaking to people, meeting people, doing my research online, I started to come across a number of like startup focused communities, particularly for those for like early stage founders. And then so started joining different communities and getting to meet people. And I think that that has been so key in helping me build my business, because like, building a business is hard, like, especially when you've got no experience. So you want to lean on people who've done it before, or who are, or people who are going through the same thing as you are, because there might be a problem you might be facing, and if you share it with someone you can meet, they might have relevant solutions because they've gone through it, or they know someone who's gone through it. And the other thing I did was identified my skills gaps and then upskilled. So at the time, like, I was a one-woman team. I didn't have anyone. So I knew that, like, okay, I need to learn how to build a community to, for my products. So I had to learn, like, obviously, like, like social media, for example. Like, I use social media personally. Like, I'd never used social media for a business. So I had to figure out, okay, what do I need? How do I need to approach this, and what skills do I need to learn in order to be able to create and build my digital presence for my business. Or things like, I learned how to do Photoshop and InDesign, because again, I didn't have a designer, so I had to learn how to design things. I learned coding, again, because I wasn't technical, but I learned like the basics of coding. I wouldn't call myself a software engineer by any way, shape, or form, but I wanted to learn, just to sort of at least have a basic idea of how things work, so that I can have more intelligent conversations with like engineers, who would help me build my products. And so I guess through all of this, I realized I was developing a lot of soft skills. So for example, like public speaking, like for me personally, I am a natural introvert. I don't like, you know, too much attention, any of that stuff. But I realized that in order to succeed in this business, I had to not be an introvert. I had to be, put myself out there. I had to, try and be as extroverted as I possibly could be, but also in an authentic manner. So through that, I realized I started to get a bit better at like public speaking. So I was doing a lot of different speaking engagements. So I remember, I think last year, I set myself a target that I would do one speaking engagement a month, just to build my confidence and build my ability to talk to a crowd. And I realized that even though my target was one a month, I started to do, sometimes three a month, because, because I would go to an event, do a talk and all that, and then someone at the event really liked my talk, and then they invite me to another talk that they were organizing, or they know someone who's organizing, all of that. So that was a really, really important skill that I developed, and I think it's a really important skill that any founder, entrepreneur needs to develop, because you're going to be constantly like selling to people, whether you're doing talks or industry related talks or general talks, or even like pitching to investors, talking to your client, talking to your customers and your clients and things like that. So that public speaking is so important, in order for people to be able to feel confidence that you're the right person to lead this company. Even when you're talking to your team, also they don't you want to be able to instill that confidence in your team that like you are the right person to be the CEO of a company. Another skill that I developed was the art of negotiation. So when I first started, I had very limited funds. Like I was basically funding it for my salary, and I needed to try and find ways to like get certain stuff for free. So I learned how to negotiate. I learned how to get like get brands to like sponsor different things for me, and which is so important. And I think the fact that I had limited funds really, really helped my creativity, because I think sometimes when you have access to a lot of money, you don't think about like how can I be frugal, or how can I be smart about how I'm spending my money. But because I had limited money, I just had to figure out like interesting out of the box ways of either making money or reducing my costs. Um, Next thing the other skill I really developed was like confidence in my abilities. Like I said, I've always been someone who's been very introverted. Like at school I was very quiet. I was kind of like teacher's pet, but like really, really quiet. Didn't really want to like want too much attention. And even though I knew I was intelligent, but I just didn't want to sort of like be very vocal about it. And then sometimes that sort of made me less confident. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it made sense in my head. And but from like putting myself out there and really talking about what I'm doing and really connecting with different people, it gave me a lot of confidence in my abilities, because I felt like, you know what, I actually know what I'm doing. Like I've done the work, I've done the research, I know what I'm building is a great business. So that's definitely an important skill that I developed. And finally, emotional intelligence. One of the things that you are not prepared for when you're building a company is how to manage different personality types, whether it's a team, whether it's different investors, whether it's different types of customers, and so on. So this is something that I've learned. I've realized I've developed over the past few months, in terms of understanding how to manage different personality types, how to manage different people, and understanding like that people are not the same. So the way that I would approach something is not the same way as another person would approach it. So really understanding how do we come to that middle ground so that we both achieve the same goal. And then in terms of what I would have done differently, I've definitely made a lot of mistakes, since I started building Cashmere. I think one of the important things I would have done differently would be to have greater insight into the technical aspects of my business, my product. So at the very early stages, I I hired a freelance developer to build the MVP, so the version one of my product, and I didn't really sort of like I wasn't too involved. It was more of a case of like, I had this idea, so I told her what the idea was, and then I was like, you build it, and then when you've making progress, you can send it to me, and I can give feedback and all of that stuff. But I wasn't really too involved in terms of like really understanding how is she building this product, how is this going to be a scalable solution, like the really like nitty gritty technical aspects of it. And I think if I had done that, it would have saved me a lot of headache in the future, because what happened was once she built it, and she'd finished her contract with me, and handed over the product, I was like, I don't know how to carry on with this, and I had to then start figuring it out and all of that stuff. So definitely having, being more hands-on with that process, it would have helped me out a lot more. And sort of linked to that is also documenting everything when it comes to building a product. Because again, because I wasn't really involved in that process, she didn't really document anything about like, the sort of like the nitty-gritty of the product and how certain things were built. So which meant that, again, it just caused me a lot of problems, it made things a lot harder. And so, and it also means that when you want to hand over to someone else, let's say you bring in another engineer into your team, it makes it a lot harder for them to figure out, understand, like, what was already done, what needs to be done, and so on. So I would definitely make sure that I document everything. Another thing is, I would have done differently was to be laser focused and be more goal driven from the very start. So one of the things that, like, issues that I love first time founders face is that, like, you have this really cool idea and you're trying to build, and you've got so many ideas, and you're trying to get involved in so many different things because you're trying to build, like, maybe your personal brand, or you're trying to build, your business's brand, and so on. And then sometimes you do things that are not necessarily linked to your core goal. So I definitely did that, and I know a lot of founders within my network who've done that. And what I would say is that if you were to start a business, really focus on, like, what are the key things that are going to help you take your business to the next level, and only focus on that. Anything else is just secondary. Like, it's not, just don't even let it not be part of, like, in your brain. Let it just take it away, because the problem is that once you start delving into different things, it then sort of distracts you from your core goal. So yeah, being laser focused is so key. And then finally, documenting my progress, because as a early stage startup, you're doing a million things all at once. You're wearing multiple hats and so on, and it's like a massive roller coaster. So one of the things that I didn't really do early on was really documenting my progress and really seeing how far I've come. So, but documenting both the good and the bad, because sometimes, especially when the bad happens, you forget all the good that's also happened. So, yeah, so really documenting my progress and making sure that I was, like, keeping tabs on all the good things I've done and all the not so good things that have happened, and actually, I'm being proud of myself and being proud of the progress that I have achieved. In terms of resources that helped me, so YouTube was so key. Honestly, like, shout out to YouTube and Google. Everything I need to learn, I always go on YouTube and Google because it has everything. I used and Twitter is also a massive resource, because I connected with so many people within the startup space, investor space, just different people, like, who are from different backgrounds and so on. And I've definitely gotten, like, like, roles. I've definitely gotten, like, opportunities just from Twitter. So Twitter is definitely, like, a really good tool to use if you want to build a company. Udemy is also a really good one for, like, if you want to learn, like, quick short courses. So, like, if I wanted to learn something on, like, UX and UI design, I would probably go on Udemy, or sometimes YouTube, but Udemy is actually quite good. Although I would recommend, make sure you look at the reviews, because some courses are not as good as others. Another really good resource if you want to start a business as a first-time founder is Y Combinator Startup School, which is a series of resources by Y Combinator, which is a early stage accelerator program in the US. It's basically like the Harvard for startups, and they have a lot of, like, online resources on YouTube of, like, how to build a business and all the different things you need to think about. Also different communities, so like Future Girl Corp and Beauty Stack Summit, which was started by Sharmadean Reed. And it's an amazing community of different, founders at different stages, but mostly, like, early stage female founders. And Sharmadean's been very generous about sharing her journey and sharing, what needs to be done in order to, like, build a business from the early stages. So definitely communities like that so key for early stage founder. I also like podcasts, so I listen to the ones I've found the most useful have been How I Built This and Girl Boss. How I Built This in particular, because I'm a very early stage company, I don't really care about, like, companies that are, like, in the millions and $1 million company and $1 billion companies. Like, I want to know how you started, like how you built this, because that's the stage I'm at. So I'd really like to learn about from successful entrepreneurs about the steps they took at the very, very early stages in order to build a business, because it's more relevant to the stage I'm at. And then just a few books which I found really useful. So like Atomic Habits, Lean Startup, Hitmakers, um, which I think are really good books to read if you're thinking about starting a business. So yeah, that's it all from me. Feel free to stay in touch. My details are on here. So I'm active on Twitter and Instagram, LinkedIn. I guess I do use LinkedIn sometimes. And then also, if you are interested in finding out more about Cashmere, my website is on there. It's cashmereapp.co.uk. Yeah, so you can check out more about the product, and if you're interested, also sign up. So thank you very much.